I just want to say good morning, everyone. It is such a
Oh,
pleasure to see you, Miss Faizun. We are live, and this is Tony Navy and the Small Business Leadership Edge show. So I'm so excited about today because this is going to be a phenomenal opportunity for us not only to connect with you in regards to small business football marketing. You know, we always bring, director level and above as far as corporate leaders to the show because we want to give big business solutions to your small business. And today is definitely going to be one of those days where you're going to not only enjoy, but do the rerun and the playback of this particular session because we are bringing aboard a powerhouse. So let me say first and foremost, welcome Faizun. It is such a pleasure to see you. We have Faizun Kamal on this morning. Good morning.
good morning.
Such a pleasure to see you, and I'll introduce you in just 2 minutes, but I want to make sure that people kind of know a little bit about the flow because one of the things that I think has been important as we have gone through all these challenges together, whether it's COVID, whether it's the civil rights, whether it's just being able to recognize where we are in the stage of the game. The good thing is that now we need to be in a place where we are focusing or future focused. And that's what today is about, or one of the key things that today is about is really looking to the future in regards to what are the options and opportunities that are out there. How can we actually lead and connect, grow our businesses, grow our people, and grow our own leadership skills for tomorrow, not only for today in this time frame and in this space, but also what is it that we're going to be looking forward to and what we're going to be needing for tomorrow's time. So I'm so excited and would love to introduce not only the topic, but our guest today. The topic, we're going to really talk about some things around politics, business, obviously future focused, as well as franchising, because we have none other than the Franchise Forbes official certified guru, Faizun Kamal, an amazing, amazing coach in regards to opening up or dealing and creating and identifying the right franchise for you, what type of business you need to build to move forward. And also just being able to, also being able to hear from Faizun her background, which is amazing because she's previously been a VP of public policy and social responsibility. And she did that actually for Verizon. And one of the things that I like about that particular background is what it does for us is it looks at things that are happening right now, real time with politics, recognizing the policy and the implications of not only corporate responsibility, and like she will talk about social responsibility, but whether we're in this environment building our own businesses, small businesses, big businesses, what we do, how we contribute, especially no matter what the circumstances are, it really does make a difference. And so as I bring some folks aboard here, thanks for chiming in. I see you coming in. Give me a moment here, folks. I'm having a little bit of a snafu trying to add my participants here. Okay, so I see you coming in, and if there are any challenges or what have you, or you choose to ask a question, what we do is we'll allow you to ask that question through chat. So if you have any questions or issues, our support tech will also be able to help you there. Let's make sure that we can get that squared away. Hold on. Okay, and in the meantime, from a franchise standpoint and from a social responsibility standpoint and from future focused and looking at Faizun's background, I want you to be able to listen to some of the nuggets of wisdom that are going to position us for looking forward, looking at business, looking at how we behave, what I would call pandemic-it, instead of just regular etiquette in this space. It is pandemic-it, people. It is how do we respond and act and treat each other, whether you're, dealing with people in your community, dealing with people face-to-face in your family, in your business, or how you actually treat your customers and your partners in this time. So I am excited, and I want to actually give you the floor for a few moments here as we open right up. Faizun, can you just tell, I know I've given some of your backdrop and your background, but you're also an official certified Forbes coach as well for franchise as a guru. So can you talk a little bit about the background that you have, especially from a franchise standpoint? We'll get into, public policy and social, but your background a little bit right now, and what's happening in the space now for you in coaching franchisees, as well as your perspective of what's going on moving forward.
Wow, absolutely. First of all, Tony, such a delight, my friend. It is wonderful to be here with you. I'm delighted. I'm honored. Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've been looking forward to our conversation for a couple of days now. You did. You introduced me when you started out. So I have been in the franchise space now, Tony, for about 5.5 years. And for me,
Okay.
my transition began when I was laid off from the corporate world, as so
Okay.
many millions of people today over the last couple of months have been laid off as a result of the pandemic.
Yes.
So that kind of started my journey, if you will, into there were quite a few reasons, but for me, it was important to do three things. It was important for me at that point in my life. Our daughter, who's now 7, she was about 16 months old at the time. And when I took stock of what my life was at that stage,
Yeah.
I said, moving forward, I don't yet know what I'm going to do, but moving forward, these three things are the anchors that I'm going to use to build the next iteration of my life and career. Number
Exactly.
one, escape the 9 to 5. I was done with that. I was absolutely done with that. And I think all of your listeners right now, I think everyone identifies with that, or at least they have at some point in their careers. So it was important for me to be able to do that. The second thing was to be able to generate, now, my friend, I think this is important in today's society, politically and economically, and that is generate true wealth.
Yeah.
Generate wealth to be able to not just provide for your family now, but in many cases, if you are able to leave that legacy for your family, for future generations, what a gift that you've given to your family when you've passed on.
Right.
That's the second piece. And then the third, but certainly not the least for me, Tony, I wanted to be able to live life on my terms. And my friend, those terms may be very different for you. It may be very different for every person on this call. But the reality of it is, for every one of us who are professionals engaged in fill in the blank, whatever it is that you do,
Yeah.
most of us, we are not living life on our terms. Our lives are dictated by our bosses.
Yes.
They're dictated by deadlines, right? They're dictated by the crazy commutes that we do back and forth from work, right? Go down the list.
Right.
And think of how much joy that drains away from us every single day to be engaged in doing something that is not necessarily of your making, or that doesn't give you the greatest joy. And so for me, and again, I hadn't quite defined what that it was going to be, but to be able to live life on my terms.
Yeah.
Using those three things as anchors, I then began my journey from being what I call a corporate executive to becoming a corporate refugee, and then becoming an entrepreneur.
Okay, there's a transition period, right? A transition.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then, that journey in and of itself, there were many things that happened then, and I'm happy to give you more details if you'd like. But essentially, what I discovered for myself was franchising truly is one of the remaining ways in which people can still achieve the American dream. I always like to say, and this is not a bad reflection on the company I used to be with before. It's a household name. It's a Fortune 15 company. They have been around forever, right? It's an American iconic brand.
Right.
It was just not my path.
Yeah.
And that, my friend, I think is what first and foremost, I help my clients to do. Let's find what your path is. What does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
And so going from there and trying to figure out, well, I have all of these skill sets, all of these different things that I have done. How can I take the very same skill sets and blast them out? Where the impact of the work I do is 100-fold, where the joy I feel in doing my work is 100-fold.
Mm-hmm.
Could there be something like that that exists? And the answer that came back to me was absolutely resoundingly yes.
That's awesome.
The work I do with clients, Tony, it's again, at heart, it's really, I work with a lot of clients who are exactly like me. Yeah. So they are corporate executives. They may still be in their jobs, but thinking, when I'm ready to leave, or I can see the writing on the wall and I don't know when I'm going to get laid off.
Yes.
For that day, could I start to explore another option that I may have thought about before, but for whatever reason, I was scared, I didn't know where to begin, fill in the blank, I just didn't do it. But could I work with you? Could you help me figure out, there are thousands of franchises out there, mm-hmm. but what is that one business that would be the right one for me, given who I am and what my goals are?
And I think that's that's amazing. And just to give people a little bit more context and backdrop, when we talk about franchising and you talk about, there's so many different types of franchises, and I'd love for you to give context. But here's the real point that I really want to make sure hits home that you brought up, which is, you've got people that are executives right now, and whether they're an executive or not, people that are looking for alternative means or more than one stream of revenue, not just to build wealth and leave some type of legacy behind, but also to not be in the situation so many of us are in today, which is, you went to, you have your job, you're supposed to be doing everything, but now this pandemic hits and all of a sudden that goes flat. And you are done, or you have no other real options. And even when there were people that had some decent, they could still sustain a bit, but they had their backup plan, which is, I've got my equity line. They actually shut off access to people's equity lines. So things that you thought were the backup in America, what happens is they all close down ranks and protect themselves, not the people that are their customers and clients. And I think the other thing that, goes along with that is us recognizing, because this did happen to me in the 2008 and 9. As I was doing some consulting, I recognized inside corporations, anytime anything happens, if you're consulting inside a corporation, and everybody knows I do leadership consulting, who's the first person that they cut? They cut contractors first. If you have a 1099, you just can slash that baby right off. So for so many of the leaders, for example, in my space that are speakers or, trainers and facilitate inside corporations, all of a sudden you've got all this business that went off the books immediately. And that's why back then I started diversifying and saying, okay, you know what? I don't want this to happen again. So I need to be able to go after my corporate contracts, which I'm not saying is not a good, fit for me. I'm a corporate person. It is just kind of my background, but I also straddle the fence because I'm still an entrepreneur of working with entrepreneurs, just or much like you do as well, working with entrepreneurs, helping them to, pivot and get their businesses online. But more so, I may speak from the leadership side in corporate, but I'm still connected with entrepreneurs as well. And what that does is that puts me in a space where I am working with two different types of markets. Absolutely. So that no matter what happens, one of those is going to still be a viable market, whatever the shift may be in crisis, in real estate bubble, in the pandemic situation. It may take a minute to get your bearings and kind of shift what you're doing, how you position yourself in this marketplace. But then when you still exert yourself, you've not lost everything. You've diversified enough that, it's just like your investments, right? In your 401k, you don't put everything into one big pot. You actually spread it out. And I think that that's one of the things that you need to do, whether you're running a business, whether you're actually having a hybrid, meaning you're, in corporate, you're doing your job and you still have additional streams of revenue so that when one thing goes down, you don't lose everything. And so I think that, as viewers are listening here, that was one of the things I wanted you to hear is, and I'm going to ask you to talk about some of the franchises that you represent, or that you may not represent them, because I know that you're coaching a person to franchise. But as you connect them with different types of businesses, two questions. Number one, how do you evaluate what type of business that really kind of works for them? And second, maybe you could first, before you even answer the question how you help them evaluate, but can you answer or give some examples of the types of franchises people are buying into right now, or being future focused? Because I'd like people to hear different ideas of what's out there and what's possible, and that people are having to make a shift right in the midst of looking to tomorrow and running this marathon race that we're running right now.
Absolutely. That's a fantastic question, Tony. Let me give you the example of one of the most recent clients that I placed in a business.
Mm-hmm.
He has now been a franchisee, I guess at this point, a little less than 2 months.
Okay.
He used to be in the military. He's a veteran.
Wow.
And he did ops. That was his thing. And he came to me, and this is something that I think a lot of people not familiar with franchising, they get floored by. So you might think, well, Faizun, he was an ops specialist in the military. What business is he going to run? Well, through the process, which I'll describe in a moment, I ended up giving him a couple of brands like I do every client. And he gravitated towards what I had thought he would, which is, are you ready for this? It's a pest control franchise.
Whoa, okay.
Okay? Like, can you make that linear connection? No, you can't. On the face of it, you can't.
No. Whoa.
So the incredible thing with this particular brand that he started with, and he and I, by the way, every client I've ever placed in a business is now a friend of mine, for purely selfish reasons, of course. And that is, I want to know, did I do a good job? Are they successful? Are they doing what they should be doing? And so he pinged me. This was probably 3.5 weeks after he had formally started with them. Tony, he was already profitable.
Because of the type of business he just went into right now. It's an essential. I am still fighting pests, buddy. I'm telling you right now, I've got an ant problem right now. And I know he probably deals with commercial space, but Morgan Hill, amidst the fires that we have going on, let me tell you.
Yes. And Tony, you hit the nail on the head with the word you just used. Essential services, essential businesses. So what have I seen over the last couple of months? My clients are getting into businesses that provide a need to have service, not a nice to have, right? Make that distinction.
Yes.
A need to have. I have another gentleman. I'm speaking with him right now. He is investigating, and he's very close to moving forward with a franchise that provides tree cutting services. Okay. If you have a big tree, if it's an older tree, at some point, either your HOA or you yourself are going to make the decision that's unsafe and it needs to come down. And by the way, I'm making it very simplistic. It's a brand that does additional things other than cutting trees down. But he investigated the brand. He looked at the numbers. He understood, to use the phrase you just used before, he understood that this particular business had multiple streams of revenue that he could tap into as a franchisee. And he said, Faizun, with my background, and by the way, this is a seasoned entrepreneur, he has started and sold multiple businesses in his life. He said, with my background, I can run this business with both my hands tied behind my back.
And not even think about it. And you know what? I want people to listen to this because, when people think about franchises, and this is why I wanted you to give some examples to really make it practical for you to think about that these exist. It's not the same as you just starting up,
No.
When you talk about franchise, let's break it down, folks. Franchise means they are giving you manuals, they're giving you the market, they're giving you the paint by numbers, steps, process and way of running this business. So you think of McDonald's, they're giving you literally the actual cookie cutter approach of how they do everything from, the recipe that goes into the fries all the way down to, how many fry cooks you need, how many of this do you need per day, depending on the volume, depending on where you are, how do you market, all those things from cradle to grave are given. And I wanted her to give examples, and I'm so glad you gave these type of examples in this space, because people think of franchises as, oh, it's got to be like Massage Envy, these big brick and mortar. Oh, it's got to be, McDonald's or Burger King, or it's one of those. And that is not the case. There are businesses, and as far as the trees, I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, I got multiple trees right now that need to be cut. Why? Because we're in the midst of big, huge fires, things going on right now, number one. But it's, impacting my gutters. They're growing into the house, and usually we get them cut every single year. And yes, but I had no idea that there's a friend. I mean, I know, you know what I mean? Who do I call? I know a guy, okay? But I had no idea. I had no idea, though, that there's truly a franchise that somebody is actually bought into.
The next time you need something, just call me.
Okay.
Probably a franchise for whatever it is you're looking for. And I say this just a little bit facetiously, Tony. It's actually true. I say this to my clients. If you have thought it, it probably already exists, because it is such a rich and diverse industry.
That is fantastic. And I really enjoy that. And I'm just so glad to see these examples, hear these examples, so people can recognize, if you thought it, it exists. So why rebuild if you can actually buy in and get up and off the ground? And many times they will actually give you a book of business. Like, for example, if you go into State Farm and you become a State Farm agent, depending on where you purchase in that particular region, they actually give you ready-made clients or a book of business in some cases right off the cuff, give you marketing. There's some backing to that if someone does have the investment, or they want something for their kids, their children, or something else, beyond just what they're doing. I think it's a powerful opportunity. So tell us how you segued from being a vice president in public policy and doing social responsibility, and then I totally would love to have that. I want to hear your transition so people can hear what it's like to make that shift. There are a lot of folks that are saying, I'm a professional, I've never run a business before, I've never done this. We've got people on here that have, and they're struggling with what to do, because they may not have a vast business background. And that's why having a corporate exec on here to be able to say, this is what it looks like in big business, but this is how I'm leveraging those same skill sets in my small business. But also, what made you make that transition, and that transition that helped you get to where you are today?
Wow.
I know that's loaded. So let's start with the transition first. Okay, we'll just start. Let me peel back my onion. Transition first, because people are needing to make a transition right now. How did you transition from corporate exec, to now doing what you're doing, loving what you're doing? But how did you make that transition and shift? Because a lot of people are afraid to go from employee to entrepreneur, or just to shift what they were doing previously to a completely different business line and industry, which is what you've done.
So the first thing I'll say, Tony, is for your listeners, if you are feeling scared, that is fantastic. Yeah. Because if you said, oh, I have no fears whatsoever, I would be a little fearful for you. The fact that you're feeling fearful means that you're alive. Mm-hmm. It means that you're thinking. It means that you're feeling. And the way to think about this, Tony, and I say this to my clients every day, there's a good fear and then there's a bad fear. Which one are you engaging in? Bad fear is the fear that stops you before you've even started. In your heart, you might feel, oh my gosh, I've thought about starting a business, but I've never done it. But it feels like this might be something that might be great for me. But no, I don't have the skills. I don't have the money. I don't have the fill in the blank.
Yeah.
It stops you before you've even started. Bad fear. Put it in a corner. That does not serve you. The good fear that serves you is the fear that says, ooh, Faizun, you're really scared, but my God, you just got laid off. You have no idea what the heck you're going to do. But instead of looking at this time as a time of feeling disillusioned and hopeless and fearful, could you turn this around in your mind? Because it really all begins in here, doesn't it? Turn it around in your mind and say, perhaps this instead is an opportunity for renewal, for refreshing,
Yes.
for reactivating, right? Whatever it is for you. And to then say, okay, I've never really thought about a franchise, but shoot, I don't have to do this on my own. I can work with a coach. Well, why don't I at least see what's available there? Just because you've dipped your toe into the pool doesn't mean you have to jump into the pool, full body. It doesn't, right? So good fear is the fear that allows you to move forward despite your fears, that allows you to explore. So that's the first thing I would say. In terms of the transition, Tony, oh, my friend, this is a loaded question. And it's loaded because I feel so passionately about this. I believe, pandemic aside, we are living in the midst of what I believe is probably the biggest, silent, most what's the word I'm looking for? Like it crawls into you like a maggot without you even realizing it. We are living in the midst of the biggest silent social epidemic of our times. And that is millions and millions of highly qualified, highly educated professionals who every day are living lives of quiet desperation. They are going in, coming back, going into their jobs every single day because they need the paycheck. They need to pay the mortgage. They need to pay the bills. The kids need to go to college, whatever those needs are.
Yes.
But more importantly, all these people, most of them are thinking, I don't have an option. If I don't do this, what else is out there for me?
Yeah.
They have failed before they have even begun. They will not allow themselves to explore something else. This is what they know. This is what they're going to stay with. Even though every single day for years and years and years, it has killed their soul slowly each and every single day.
Yes. When you made that transition, you said, and I think people can relate to that, you were actually laid off. So you really didn't have a choice anyway. But then you had to make a shift and say, okay, I've got to do something different. How did you get yourself onto the path to do something different?
Even after I got laid off, my friend, for the next 3 months, I dove immediately back into a job search. This is how crazy our brains are.
Yes.
Okay. It wasn't until about month 3.5, and I had an interview where the interviewer was particularly inappropriate.
How eloquently put.
And I, whatever it is I said to him, and I hung up. And Tony, I said to myself, and I will never forget, there are certain visceral moments in my life I will always remember. This was one of them. I said, Faizun, for as long as you shall live, as God is your witness, you will never, ever, ever have another interview call with anyone ever again. You're done. You're never going back to corporate again. It was in that moment, Tony, that I realized what for me is probably one of the biggest truths of my life and my career. And that is, you have to stop looking for happiness where you first lost it.
Yes.
I wasn't happy. On the surface, if you looked at me, you would say, oh my gosh, Faizun, you've achieved the American dream.
Right.
It felt more like a nightmare to me. The work was great. The company was great. I worked with a fabulous group of people. But as I said before, the path was not mine. I felt I was living life at half measure. I knew I had so much more to offer, but I just didn't know where that somewhere was. I hadn't yet figured it out. And so I finished that call. And the next probably 3 months, Tony, I call this my 40 nights in the desert.
Okay.
It was not easy. And anyone listening to our conversation should not think that this process is going to be easy. It's not. I had mentally made that decision, but now I had to physically, viscerally, emotionally go through that process of cutting myself off from what I had known my entire career. Mm-hmm. I was never going to be an employee. Well, that's great. Well, what are you going to be then? I don't know. Oh my God, I don't know. I have a mortgage, I have a baby, I have a husband, I have a this, I have a that, I have bills to pay. What do you mean you don't know, right? All that starts to set in. It's a scary process. But I think for me, what really what really held me strong and true to my path was I had known for a very long time that the path I was on was the wrong path. And at that point in my life, I was no longer willing to waste even one more day doing something that I was not put on this planet to do.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't yet figured out what it was, but I knew it wasn't that. You go through the transition process, my friend. You surround yourself with friends. You surround yourself with people who can literally slap you in the face and say, get up.
Yeah.
Stop the pity party. You're done. Get up. Go take a bath. You haven't bathed in a couple of days. Let's go drink some tea.
Yeah. We've let you wallow.
Right? It's that. And I think for me, it was actively moving forward. Once I made the decision, no more corporate, then it became, okay, well, what kind of business am I going to start? What does that look like? And this brings me into one of the key things that I do with every client, which is one of the questions you asked me. You don't have to have a business background. Almost every client who comes to me will say something like this. Faizun, I used to do marketing for ABC company for the last 12 years. I mean, what business am I going to run?
Right.
Is there something out there for someone like me? And I laugh and I say, probably, but let's figure it out together. And the process really begins with you and I sitting down and with me trying to get a better understanding of who's Tony. What are your skill sets? Or as I like to refer to them, what are your superpowers? What are those things that you are absolutely so good at doing?
Yes.
That you love to do, that you enjoy doing? Conversely,
Mm-hmm.
what are your blind spots? What are your weaknesses?
And is that what you did with yourself?
That is exactly what I did with myself.
Really? Because
Right?
it's just taking inventory and taking stock versus, I mean, even when I came out to doing consulting, I used to be an HR director, be VP of operations. The first thing you want to jump into, I know I did from an HR standpoint, was right back into HR. And I'm like, but this isn't completely me, because although I'm good at ops and I'm good at, the training, I'm really a trainer and facilitator. I do love operations, but there's more of the business to those things than just doing the HR human capital, keep everybody in line and do harassment. I mean, that's not my space. My space is really transforming someone's life inside there, and the same thing for transforming someone's business. So you're going through a process, or taking them through a process like we both did, even though people want to go out, like the marketing example you gave. The first thing, well, what am I going to do with marketing? Maybe I need to go in and I do need to do my own marketing consulting business. But what she's saying, folks, is that's not what you necessarily need to do. It may be what you're supposed to do, but what we're saying is step back before you just jump into what you're already doing and think through, what is your zone of genius, or what I would call your zone of genius. Absolutely. What is it that you really enjoy, what you like to do, before you make that transition moving forward? So keep going.
Absolutely. The process begins with taking stock, taking inventory of what are your sales aptitude like? What is your management aptitude like? For me, this creates a baseline for what you are coming to the table with. And by the way, there's no good or bad. Oh my God, Faizun, I don't have it. It doesn't matter. Every person is different. This is why we don't have one franchise in the world. We have thousands. There's a reason for that. All right. We begin with these assessments. You and I are going to have numerous conversations. And one of the key things that I will be doing for you is, as we get deeper into the process, I will be building what we refer to as your business model. It's not a business plan. Your business model is, think of it as, I walk into our meeting with a blank canvas and a paintbrush. And together, you and I'm going to ask you 100 different questions. And the answers you give me helps me paint this very detailed picture of, what does Tony want in a business? We don't know what the business is yet, but what does she want? Does she want to work part-time or full-time? Does she want to have employees? If so, how many? Does she want to have a business that is more business to consumer, or is it more business to business? Is Tony open to looking at businesses that can operate in a retail setting, in a home-based setting, in an office setting? Is she open to all, or is there something that she's like, oh my gosh, Faizun, no, 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 I want nothing at all that has to be situated in a retail location? Ah, okay, right? These little clues. So there's a bunch of stuff that I will take you through. At the end of that, we have what we call your business model. And this, Tony, essentially is the blueprint to your search. We will use this as you begin your franchise search journey with me.
So how did you begin your franchise search? Or how did you begin your process, your specific story in regards to, okay, I'm going to do my own business? How did you make the decision to get into the business that you're in right now?
Absolutely. Exactly what I just shared with you. I began working with someone who does what I now do.
Okay.
And I went to them and I said, I have no idea what I want to do.
Yeah.
You help me. And they did the same thing. They took stock. They took inventory. What are you good at? What are you not good at? And then presented me with brands. And I hated every single thing that the person showed me. I hated them all. Wow. And I said, no, I can't see myself doing that. I don't see myself, because again, without realizing, what I was doing was I was stripping the external layer off of the businesses to say, what does a day in the life of a franchisee in that business look like?
Yes.
Because my days, I want to be happy in my days, enjoying what it is I'm doing. Now, if you're going to tell me, okay, Faizun, in order for you to be successful in this particular business, you wake up in the morning and until, you clock off at the end of the day, you are going to be making back-to-back cold calls. This is the only way you're going to succeed in the business.
Yeah.
I would much rather slit my wrist and die. That ain't happening. That's not me, right? So it's fine-tuning. It's fine-tuning and understanding. For me, in the final analysis, what I discovered was the franchise consulting industry fits me to a T. My husband always says, my wife has never met a stranger in her life.
I can see that. Yes.
My business, my friend, right? What do? I walk into a room full of strangers and I try to have a conversation with them. Hopefully it's a conversation. Hopefully it's not me talking at them. When I do my workshops, my in-person workshops, that's essentially what I'm doing. To have you engage, to ask me questions, for me to be able to give you information that perhaps you didn't have before.
Yes.
I have to be able to talk to complete strangers without climbing up. I can't be fearful about stuff like that. I can't be fearful about public speaking. I love networking. I don't, one of the things I have found, and this is, again, taking stock for pretty much all of my life since I have been an adult, my friends and family will tell you, Faizun is really good at strategizing. If you have a problem, she will talk with you through it until you guys figure out some viable options. Mm-hmm. What do you think I do with my clients now every single day? Right? Yeah. I present them with brands. And then I say, okay, Tony, what have you learned? What did you like? What did you dislike? Let's talk through. Oh, you think this might be a good business for you? Tell me why. Why do you think that? Have you looked at this? Have you looked at that? Mm-hmm. Right? So it's that. So for me, it was very much, I was able, for the first time in my career, I'm able to bring my full self to the work that I do. And
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, finish.
You're
able to bring your full self to your work.
And my work is my calling. There's nothing else that you could tell me to go do that I would do.
And I think that's so powerful because for the folks that are on here, and if you do have a question, I've got a couple of questions that I'm going to actually field in just a second, but if you do have a question, don't hesitate for Faizun to go to the Q&A box. Put in the chat, or excuse me, not the chat, the Q&A function so that I can actually see your questions come through. And one of the questions I'll say in just a minute, but as far as that piece, I really enjoyed and appreciate that comment in regards to you saying you are now able to bring your full self, but also you're really operating in what I would call your zone of genius. You're doing, and people say this all the time, oh, go and do what you're passionate about. And you know what? The truth of the matter is, folks, I don't say go do what you're passionate about. You go first, because most people don't know what they are passionate about. It takes you time to figure out as you're going through different careers, different opportunities. I talk to my son, and even students in school, oh my gosh, go and get some degree that you're passionate about and figure out and it's like, you know what, there's people that have gone and they're an art major and then they can't make a living and then they're wondering why. So no, you don't go and do what you're passionate about right up front. You go and make sure that what you're doing, even with the franchising, you don't go and do a franchise that says it's massage envy because that's what you love and that's what you'd love to be doing is a massage right now. And you can't, get that business off the ground right now. So you still have to think about what is going to be conducive and what's going to work for me, but balancing it with what is going on in the industry right now and what's going to be thriving. But also recognizing that as you're in this space right now, and this is for whether you're running a business, whether you're, looking for new opportunities, and as we move forward in the future, it is about saying, what is not only conducive with my personality style, and like you said, taking stock, but also what are the forward-thinking opportunities and emerging industries that are going on that I can still maneuver the business in this way, that I, can work in a way that I would like to, but I can still capitalize on moving forward with the direction that we're going for from a future perspective. And for those of you that, of course, are also just trying to figure out, how do I survive this kind of thing in regards to preparing yourself for the future? That's one of the reasons why I've been doing the program called Pivot to Profit Secrets. And support, if you could put that actual URL in chat, that would be awesome. One of the things I think that's been powerful is no matter what you're deciding to do, you having some type of online footprint. And I'm even starting to connect with people that are professionals that are recognizing, whoa, I need to be online, because you said it earlier in the show, which is you've got some amazing, this is a social, our time is different than anything else it has been, because you are seeing some of the top talent of all time, that are jobless, so even when you get ready to go back, and if you could, of course, put Pivot to Profit Secrets inside the chat support, that would be awesome. I appreciate that. But Pivot to Profit Secrets, and the competitiveness of people going back into the marketplace. You're talking about competing as a mediocre, or no matter what level, with some of the creme de la creme in the industry that are looking and going to be vying for the next job opportunities when we reopen. And here's what the first things that's going to happen, whether you're a professional, whether you're an entrepreneur, or whether you're a small business. If you cannot be found online, you do not exist. That is going to be where we go moving forward. If you're not on LinkedIn, if you don't have some type of pedigree, and I don't mean just, oh, your profile's out there. No. I mean, have you connected? You heard Faizun talk about building your network, and that's one of the things she loves. And even if you don't love it, you need to learn to love it, because the more in depth your network is, then when you are doing things, you have those things supporting you. You have videos out there, or you have someone else's videos. You have started to build your own pedigree. Even if you're not a person that wants to do video, you're maybe speaking on someone's podcast and you have some audio out there, or you producing some articles because you're just not in front of and you don't want to talk, but you do need to have something written. Things that are able to depict your zone of genius, your area of expertise. We call it sellocation, which is being able to sell through educating people on who you are and what you do. Because the moment I meet you, even on a Zoom, I'm still going to go back to your LinkedIn profile and check you out. And do I actually want to continue the connection? I'm going to check you out, especially if I'm looking for you for a job opportunity or to be a business partner on Facebook, where you think, oh, that's my private profile. It's not your private profile. It's in public domain. They're looking at all your goods for the last years, things that you think you can actually try to hide. They're going to check and see if you're Looney Tunes. And now they've got a plethora and millions of candidates to look at. So you've got to put yourself in a situation where you're in the driver's seat of your career and or any side revenue generating streams that you create for yourself. And that's one of the things that we're doing inside the program, because it's not just about picking a business like what Faizun is talking about. It is exactly some of the details she talked about in regards to making the transition. Looking at what behaviors are you now, what are you dealing with and being able to bring your full integrated self into the next step. in what you're supposed to be doing. And that means, okay, my kids are going to be here because we're sheltering in place right now. And I've got to have some flexibility to be able to continue to deal with them and know that, okay, me getting up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning before my kids get up, yeah, I may have to do that for a period of time, but do I want to do that forever? So it means, okay, what kind of lifestyle do I really want? And how do I bring more of my integrated self into that? And what are the opportunities for me to do that online and offline? Because you now have a global marketplace and a footprint that you're able to leverage, and you're able to buy into, whether it's a franchise or whether online affiliates and things like that, that allow you to have access and create that schedule, create that freedom, and create what is going to be revenue generating activity for you. And sometimes you have to do a few things so you can pay the mortgage, pay the bills, so that you can get to where you want with your zone of genius, where you can bring and really fulfill all of your gifts. Sometimes it's an iterative process. So when we talk about that iterative process, and we talk about you jumping into a program, you heard Faizun talk about getting a coach, being able to make sure, whether it's Faizun, and Faizun, we will make sure that we get your information, or you can, well, I'll let you in a moment tell people how it is best to contact you as well. But I'd like to throw it back to you and say, okay, now that you are doing franchise, how did you become the guru in regards to franchising? And I call you the guru because I'm like, if you became a Forbes official coach, you don't get there for no reason. You get there because you're a guru, you're an expert. So tell us a little bit about that, that thread and what it took for you to rise to the occasion.
I think first of all, one of my mottos is I always say yes before I feel ready. And I think, Tony, that's particularly important for us as women, because think about it. The average guy applies for a position that they're maybe 50% qualified for. Mm-hmm. The average woman does not apply for a position if she's even 90% qualified for, saying, well, no, there are a couple of things I need to learn before I do apply. That's mm-hmm. actually not me saying this. This is like stats, research out there, right? So first thing, say yes before you're ready. It'll keep you on your toes. It'll force you to iterate. It'll force you to be creative. If you work 10 hours, it'll make you work 20 because you're trying to learn as fast as you can. Yeah. The second thing for me, I think, was I fell in love with this industry. It changed my life completely. My life now versus my life when I was an employee it's night and day. And so that is the impetus that spurs me on to help create that same change in the lives of my clients. I knew nothing at all about franchising when I came in, nothing at all, right? I knew just as much as the average person does. Oh yeah, it's all about burgers and fries, right? That was about the extent of my knowledge. I read a lot. I write a lot. My book came out last year. It shattered really any expectations that I had of it. It became a bestseller in the first week. It's been an ebook on Amazon. I think 2 weeks now. 2 weeks ago, it came out as an audiobook on Audible. And then on September 1st, it is released as a paperback in bookstores nationwide. If you had said this to me 5 years ago, I would have said, you are Looney Tunes. Get the hell away from me. That ain't happening, right? It's been a lot of stuff. But again, when you do, who was it? One of my favorite poets, Khalil Gibran, he said, work is love in action. Mm. And it is so true for me. I love what I do. And so the hours that I put into it, whether it's writing an article for Forbes, whether it's doing an online workshop now, whether it's working with a client, having a conversation with them where they're at a point where they're saying, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this, and talking them off the ledge, right? Yeah. Whatever it is, I think it's doing what I do, doing what we all do, but doing it with just a little bit more love.
Yeah, but Forbes didn't give you the official Forbes, franchise person. They didn't give you that because you're doing it with love or because you worked extra hours. There's a lot of people that work a lot of time, and there's a lot of people that put in extra hours and love what they do. But what do you think was, the one or two things that made them select you as being a franchise expert in their sphere of influence, or a franchise coach, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, paradoxically, it's probably the one thing that I rebelled against ever since I was a baby, that all of us are told by our parents with much love. It is all intended with love. But think of when you and I were kids, Tony. What did your mom and dad say to you? I know they said it to me. Ah, Faizun, be careful. You're going to be coloring outside the lines. Stay inside the lines. Back then, physically, I didn't stay within the lines. I was always doing something I shouldn't have. Transfer that over into my career life when I started working as an adult. It's always been a desire to do something beyond the confines of what was given to me. You can call it creativity. I don't know. It was always extending it to figure out, could there be something more that I could be doing? Frankly, I think when you look at my career profile, my career history, and I think this is important for those of your listeners who are looking for their next job, don't be ashamed because you didn't follow some formula that you have in your head. There's no rule out there. There are things that you have done in your career that make you that much richer, that make you that much more filled out and whole. I think the fact that I had zero background in franchising has made me what I am today. Because I came into the industry and I looked at everything with baby eyes, with new eyes, not jaded eyes. I remember this, my first boss at Verizon said this to me. So the company courted me for 2.5 years. And they said, we're going to create a position for you and bring you on board. And I said, you're crazy. I don't have a background in telecom, very much like I didn't have a background in franchising.
That's right.
And I said, why would you want me? And he laughed. And he said, Faizun, the fact that you don't have a background in telecom is exactly why we want to hire you. You will be able to come in and look at something with absolutely brand new eyes. You will bring, very literally, you will bring a perspective that perhaps we don't have. I think that is what makes me good at what I do. Mm-hmm. Because I've had these different experiences, they haven't made me less of. They have enriched me. They have given me multiple perspectives to be able to look at one scenario. And if you've been in an industry or if you've done something for the last 30 years, maybe you will end up with looking at that in one particular way. But because I've done different things, I might be able to come to the table with multiple perspectives. Yeah. I don't know if that answers the question, but I think that's probably one of the things.
That's one of the things. That's one of the things of why Forbes says you're the right person, just because of the viewpoint. And I think that's powerful because what it does is it helps people recognize there's what we would call, and how I will take that and shift it so that my viewers can really hear and receive it, or the practical application, which is leveraging and looking some of the soft skills that you have many times can be so much more powerful than the tangible hard skill. And what I mean by that is emotional intelligence, your ability to connect with people, view things different, innovate, come up with creative solutions and ways to approach and do things. That is what's really needed right now. You will see as we move forward in the future, as we're moving now, people are needing to come with new ideas and new ways to deliver, new ideas to leverage technology, and to be able to bring new solutions to people right now where they are. How do you actually do what you're doing and shift that and do it differently? You're seeing people that used to come into the gym. Now they've been doing workout videos for a long time, but now you have a personal trainer that you used to see physically, but now you're literally seeing them, and you're still seeing them live personally, one-on-one or one-to group, but you're now actually having them on a screen where you're riding your bike or doing whatever inside your home. You need to be able to recognize whether you're a small business or whether you're a leader. It becomes your emotional intelligence and your ability to transition, your ability to see what gifts and strengths that you have, but to be able to really connect with people no matter where it is. Because whether we can network face to face or not any longer, where's the new playground? Where do we actually have to go to shift ourselves? Whether for your space, it's LinkedIn, whether for your space, it's figuring out videos are what's going to get to your target market. It's utilizing your emotional intelligence so that you can make now what we would call that virtual connection. And these things are so critical, not only in you building your business, your brand, or even building what you would say is your next step in your career. But I'm also going to step back and talk about you being a VP of public policy and social responsibility at Verizon, says a lot of things all at once. There's a lot of impact that we are projecting and seeing right now as we move forward with people saying, what kind of company do I actually want to work with and work for? They are looking at, how did you treat your people during this pandemic? How did you lay your folks off? What kinds of statements were you making during this pandemic and as you move forward? What kind of flexible work-life policies and the culture do you have? Because people are now taking stock as to how companies really do treat each other, or treat their workers, their consultants, their contractors, and their impact on the social responsibility in regards to the nation, whether it's diversity and inclusion, whether it's standing up for issues politically or otherwise that are loaded, but how do they not support these issues because these are women's rights issues, or they have all this diverse and different cultures, and we are now a global marketplace. Tell us the one or two things with the few minutes we have left. Tell us a couple of things in regards to your role in impacting public policy and social responsibility for a big giant like Verizon. How can our small businesses do some of the same kinds of things that you had to do on a larger scale?
Absolutely. This is one of the projects that I absolutely enjoyed. And in fact, I expanded the scope of that work. Again, coloring outside the lines. Bringing more qualified, diverse women into leadership positions within the public safety sphere. Public safety was one of my portfolios, and essentially working with police officers or peacekeepers in many instances, depending on what it is that you did. Overwhelmingly, these people are men.
Yeah.
And overwhelmingly, they're white men. I worked with the leading organization for African American men in public safety. I worked with the leading organization of women in public safety in positions of leadership. Mm-hmm. And one of the key things that I did was essentially lobby to get more funds from the company and to be able to create scholarships and grants that we then created for these organizations. To be able to, whether it is to go to the national conference in your industry, but you can't go because you don't have the money because you're tiny.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever those little things were. The reality, Tony, is I think, particularly in the world we live in now, when we hear words like racism and sexism and all the other isms out there, it is very easy to get very disheartened and say, screw that. I'm just one person. What the hell am I going to be able to do? I'll just let it be, right? It's very easy to feel that way. Elections are coming up. I'm just one person. What's my vote going to do? Go out there and vote. That's what you need to do, right? So I think we should never lose sense of our personal agency. As individuals, we are incredibly powerful. I was really not that far high up the totem pole within the company, but even in my role, I was still able to create some pretty significant changes within the organizations that I supported that were within my portfolio.
Yes.
Right? Now, of course, I did that as a corporate employee. I had the backing of a multi-billion-dollar brand behind me. Sure. But if you take that and you transition the Faizun who was at Verizon and transition her into the Faizun today, it's all me. I don't have anybody behind me. But think about it. I think it goes back again to love, Tony. Right? All these clients that are coming to me that are saying, oh my gosh, can you help me redesign my career? And by doing so, help me redesign a life that I actually love. Because I forgot the last time that I loved what I did.
Yeah.
If I can take that one person and help them find that business, I think I have made a pretty big impact in that person's life.
And I think that And I think that that is actually perfect the perfect tip in regards to closing, because whether it's you making that transition personally in your business, in your career, it's also that social responsibility that each of us has as well, which
Absolutely.
is to be able to go in and make an impact, even if it is on someone else's life. You know, you ought to just look around. There's an issue going on a little bit everywhere, but we have a chance and an
Everywhere.
opportunity to, yeah, to one person at a time, make a difference, shift someone's world, and change a life. And that's what one of the things that you want to be able to do, not only in your business, as you actually integrate your life on the other side, future focused, but also in the social sphere. You don't have a chance just to sit back and let things happen anymore. Each of us
Yep.
needs to be part of, even if it's one person that we touch, one thing that we shift and change. That's what this is about. So it's so exciting to not only have you here. Thank you so much for being a part of the show today. And for those of you, you always know, Small Business Leadership Edge is always on Tuesdays, where you can see us live and hear the powerful opportunities that you have to listen to executives talk about the things that you can do now, that you can do in the future, and that are going to change how we live in what I call America 2.0. So www.smallbusinessleadershipedge.com. It is truly my pleasure to serve, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Make it a great week, everyone. Take care.